Fred Harrop served 22 years in the Air Force in the Strategic Air Command's Airborne Refueling Group. After retiring, Fred decided to spend a second career serving his fellow veterans by becoming a Veteran Service Officer, helping veterans navigate through the Veterans Administration's myriad of regulations, forms, and procedures. During his 20-year career as a VSO, he served veterans in 3 different counties as well as some veteran service organizations. He recently retired for Sumter County's Florida's Division of Veterans Affairs. Fred is eager to share his wealth of knowledge, so let's just jump into it. Well, Fred, thank you for taking your time to sit down and talk to us a little bit about what a Veteran Service Officer is and what they do. Could you tell us a little bit about what a VSO does for the veterans?
Sure. Primarily, the first thing the Veteran Service Officer does is provide information to the veteran or his family when they come in looking for information about benefits. And then after that, we determine whether or not the veteran is eligible for benefits based on either where they served, when they served, or in some cases what their medical conditions are to do that. And then once we make the determination as to what procedures or what claims can be filed, then a good Veteran Service Officer will gather the evidence and put together a claim and file it with the VA, either in St. Petersburg or if it's a pension claim up to the Pension Management Center in Philadelphia.
Hey, how is VSO associated with the VA?
Okay. We're, unlike many people, it is not an adversarial relationship. We are advocates. The VSO, Veteran Service Officers, are advocates for the veterans, whether they American Legion, VFW, Vietnam Veterans of America. There are a wide variety of national service organizations, and the local Veteran Service Officers, be it county, state, are affiliated with the different Veteran Service Officers. So basically, we provide the information to the VA in the best light possible to get the claim granted by the VA.
You hear that on TV, a lot of these legal firms are talking about doing things and helping the veterans, et cetera, and so on. How do people get compensated in this?
Well, I tell people when I worked for the county or the state or for VFW, we were on salary. I mean, there is no compensation directly from the veteran. There have been instances where people have tried to do that and actually have been prosecuted for doing that because you cannot take any money from a veteran or a widow or spouse for filing claims. So no, in the state of Florida, 66 of the 67 counties have Veteran Service Officers. Again, you have the American Legion that operates through the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. You have the Veterans of Foreign Wars, DAV, wide variety of folks. We have our own representative, VVA representative Mark McCabe, down at the St. Petersburg Regional Office.
What kind of training or certification is required to be a Veteran Service Officer?
Okay. To be a county Veteran Service Officer, you have annual training that is conducted by the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. If other service organizations such as DAV, they have their training. VFW has their training. VBA has their training. In my case, my training was annually. We had 2 conferences a year that I would go to when I was a Veteran Service Officer, and the other service organizations would accept that as training for their purposes to maintain accreditation for that. So we're professional Veteran Service Officers, unlike post-service officers at the American Legion or VFW who get a 1-day fire hose course. Professional Veteran Service Officers that work at the regional office or in the counties have at least 5 days of training, many 8 days of training a year.
Walk me through what a typical counseling appointment would be like with a veteran that walked into your office.
Sure. I have a veteran come in, contact me, say, hey, I want to file a claim for diabetes. I was in Vietnam, okay? So I would have the individual, if they've never filed the claim before, bring in his or her DD-214. First of all, you have to verify that they were in country Vietnam. The second thing we would verify is that they actually have the disability to file the claim for. So show me something from the doctor, either a VA doctor or an outside doctor, that you have a diagnosis of diabetes. Then we would look at if there are other conditions or if they're on medication, that would determine the percent of disability. So once we gather the information, then we go ahead and do the specific VA forms, sit down, we'll send that down to the VA. The VA will then conduct a rating, do a rating decision, may or may not call the veteran in for an examination, and then eventually we'll provide a rating decision that we either grant or deny the benefit to the individual.
Well, how would you handle a dispute? You know, suppose a veteran is not happy with the decision that the VA comes with.
Okay, the appeal process starts with what is called a notice of disagreement. Basically, you get a rating decision that you don't agree with. Now, a good veteran service officer will take that rating decision. They will go ahead and examine it based upon the evidence and based upon the laws and regulations and advise the veteran whether or not he or she has a valid dispute with the VA. It may be a case to where, and again, let's say on diabetes, veteran got service connected for diabetes at 10%, thought it should be higher, but he or she may not be on medication. So if that's the case, then I would advise them, don't clog the system up with an appeal because you're going to lose. That's what the law is. I would show them in the rating guide what determines the 10% disability. Now, if they do have it and the VA just overlooked evidence, then you go back to the VA and say, hey, I showed a doctor's note that showed I'm on medication, do that. The downside to an appeal is the fact that right now the timeliness and appeal is generally not looked at for about 30 months. That's how far behind the VA is on appeals. So if I could put someone in the case to where I can get new evidence to do that or a different way about it rather than go the appeal route, I'll advise the veteran or the claimant to do that. But there are mechanisms to do that. Once they file the notice of disagreement, the VA comes back with what's called a statement of the case, and they'll either agree or disagree. If they disagree, if they continue to deny the veteran's claim, then you have a mechanism to file to what's called the Board of Veterans' Appeals in Washington. Then you're talking another 18 months, possibly 2 years on top of that to do that, and then eventually you get a decision from Washington to do that. So there is the ability to appeal a case certainly is there.
You have a number of veterans out there, and you hear these different stories of people having difficulty with the VA, and often they want to write to their congressman. Does that kind of intervention actually work to the benefit of the veteran?
The only time I would recommend someone going to a congressional office is if there's been an inordinate amount of time that nothing's been done on it. Because what you have to understand is that claims get in line, okay? They are in line once you file a claim. You're in line. So if you call your congressman and have them check on something for you, the congressional office, the liaison office at the regional office, they're going to go and they're going to pull your file out of line. And they're going to go ahead and check on it, send a standard letter back to Congressman Nugent or whoever the case may be, saying, yep, we're working on it, sorry, blah, blah, blah. And there's no guarantee it's going back in the same places that the line was before to do that.
Now, you often hear about claims for unemployability. How does that work into the system?
Unemployability is a great mechanism and a shortcut to get individuals to the 100% level. And what individual unemployability is that you have to actively tell the VA, I cannot work solely due to my service-connected disabilities. Very common one has been individuals that maybe are currently 70% for post-traumatic stress disorder. You either have to be eligible for the VA to look at individual unemployability, you either have to have a single disability of 60% or multiple disabilities that come up to 70%. And so if you get there, you're in the ballpark that the VA is going to look at it. Then the next step is the VA is going to look and see, okay, does your service-connected disability, does that make you unemployable? You could have, say, 50% for PTSD and let's say 30% for hearing loss or whatever. But unless one of those two conditions render you unemployable, the VA is going to deny the claim. You may have other problems. You may have back problems. You may have other problems that are not service related. And many times the VA is going to look at that and say, okay, yeah, you may not be able to work, but the reason you can't work is because of this condition that is not service connected. But unemployability is a great mechanism to get to 100% because, and if I can take this time to explain VA math, because a lot of people will come to me and say, I got a 50 and a 40 and it only equals 70. How does the math work and everything? How VA math works is they look at the whole person concept. And what they do is they take your largest single disability. So let's say an individual, again, let's say he's 50% for PTSD. So right now, you start off with being 100% able and 0% disabled. So with the 50% disability, you're now 50% disabled, but you're also just 50% able. So the next disability you have, let's say it's the 20% for hearing loss, it's not 20% off of 100, it's 20% off of the 50 that's left. So 50 and 20 is going to equal 60 because 20% of 50 is 10%. So you're going to go from 50 to 60%. So any subsequent disabilities, you have a lessening principle to work off of. That's why individual unemployability is such a great tool because it is so hard when you get up in the 80, 90 percentile that you have so little to work off of to actually get to scheduler 100% versus unemployable. The thing a lot of people don't understand also is the fact if you are considered individually unemployable by the VA, that is no different than someone who is 100% scheduler by the VA. And the best example I used to give people is one of the reasons I'm in this business, I never knew my father with legs. My dad lost both his legs in World War II, the invasion of Sicily. Okay, my dad obviously was 100% service-connected disabled scheduler. Okay, he was out there to do that. So there is no difference between him and the individual that cannot work, let's say for their PTSD or their severe diabetes or whatever the case may be, service-connected. They are both considered 100% by the VA, no difference in the benefits, but it's a great tool.
Hey, what else should a veteran know before they sit down or come to your office to ask, for an appointment?
If they're going to come in and want to file a specific disability claim, they need to know that if they've never filed a claim with the VA before, they're going to have their military discharge papers. Enlisted retirees may have 5, 6, 7, 8 different DD-214s, okay? So the VA is going to want all of those, okay? Make copies of all of those. Then if they're filing for a medical condition, let's say we got the gentleman for the diabetes, if he or she is seeing an outside doctor, I want that information up front. I want something from the doctor showing me you have it. If you're getting treated by the VA, we don't need those records because we'll simply tell the VA where to go get those records. And they can get those, they can go in the computer and get those. So those are the main things to do it with. The biggest thing I tell people when they leave my office or leave sitting down with me is I give them a reasonable expectation of what's going to happen. You know, I will never deny, and no county veteran service officer has the right to deny someone filing a claim. But on the other hand, I will give them I may have somebody that may have been in Vietnam, but does not have any of the listed disabilities related to Agent Orange, okay, but they want to file a claim because, oh, I had Agent Orange. That's not a disability, but if they want to go ahead and file it, fine, but I'm going to let them know this is what's going to happen. So I don't want them coming back to me saying, you promised me this, you promised me that. No, I told you to do that. So that's the biggest thing. Have the evidence that you want to present to the VA, at least initially for you, and then if there's additional things we need to go get, we will.
Are there any other questions or, statements that you'd like to make before we conclude today?
I think the only thing is for members of Chapter 1036, generally speaking, I get to the general membership meetings at least by 6:30, sometimes earlier. I have absolutely no problems, and I welcome people if they want to bring letters they get from the VA, rating decisions for me to look at, things like that. I'll be glad to sit down with them and give them my opinion and see what happens with that.
Is there any particular organization that they should look to?
Generally speaking, well, I worked for Sumter County Veteran Service Offices. I retired from there 2 years ago. They have an office on Morris Boulevard in the Sheriff's Annex there, Morris and 466. And then their main office is now down in Pinellas Plaza, where you have the Gold Dome there in the library. I call it Notre Dame without the touchdown Jesus in the parking lot. And you can go down there, and there's veterans counselors down there. Those were the people I would recommend. Also, the state of Florida has 2 individuals, veteran service officers, full-time at the Villages Clinic. They're there. So if you're at the clinic, you can always swing by there. The difference is with the county service office, they can make appointments, whereas it's a first-come, first-serve at the clinic. So you may go in there, there may be 8 or 10 people waiting in line to do that. So I always recommend to go to the county, actually, for the convenience of that, plus the fact I know those folks are good people.
Now, the state of Florida has some additional benefits. Can you explain any of those?
The biggest benefits that are out there right now, if you are at least 10% service-connected disabled, you are entitled to an additional $5,000 added on to your homestead exemption. Okay, you need to tell the property appraiser's office that. You need to simply take the letter in. But regardless of what it is, you get that. Also, if your disabilities are deemed combat related, anything related to Agent Orange for our members is considered combat related, okay? And if you're over age 65, you can then apply for combat related property tax exemption, which would get you, and that percentage, let's say you have someone with diabetes on medication, they're rated 20% service connected. They can actually get 20% off of their ad valorem taxes to do that. So they would go to the county service office, present their information, they get a letter, and then just go next door to the property appraiser's office. If you end up being 100% service connected, permanent and total, then you can be exempt from all ad valorem property taxes to do that. And again, it's a proactive system to where you need to tell the property appraiser's office, bring them the documentation to do that. So those are the main benefits that there is. The state of Florida has veterans nursing homes throughout the state of Florida. The other thing, and while I'm thinking of nursing homes, if you are 70% service connected or greater, and down the road, and hopefully for many people it's way down the road, you need to be put in a skilled nursing facility long term. There are contract VA facilities that the VA will pick up the entire tab of that, as well as you would keep getting your compensation. Lady Lake Specialty Care in Lady Lake, Arbor Village, and Wildwood, those are two right here locally to do that. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize that's out there.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I'm sure this information will go a long way to helping our members.
It's my pleasure, and like I said, anybody comes up to me before the meetings, I'll be happy to sit down and chat with them.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.